Well, viewers, welcome to the talk show, ABC Real Channel Talk Show. And I am from Bangladesh and it's being telecast from America. Today, our points of discussions mainly rooted around Bangladesh. And we know very well that recently election took place, 12 parliament in Bangladesh. And so many things happened centering this election. And today we have invited very important guests here. And they are Professor Forhad Hossain. He is a political analyst and member of the State Monitoring Committee of Election Monitoring Committee of AwamiLeague. How are you, Mr. Forhad?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you, sir, for your kind introduction. About me to the session.
AB Party Bangladesh. How are you, Mr. Fuaad?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, then Professor Kalimullah, an iconic figure in the field of talk shows in social media. How are you, Professor
Thank
Kalimullah?
you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very fine. Thank you. How are you, sir?
Fine. Then Mr. Salauddin, he is from United Kingdom. He is the chairman, Big Society in UK. How are you, Mr. Salauddin?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It's my privilege and I am honored to be here. Thank you.
Then I come to Mr. Barrister Zillur Rahman. He is a constitutional expert and a very vocal voice in social media, especially the talk shows. How are you, Barrister Zillur?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Well, now let us start the talks. And first of all, I would like to draw the attention of Barrister Fuaad. You know very well the election to the 12th Parliament in Bangladesh held on January 7. And without presence of the major opposition political parties, including BNP, it was a very fantastic election indeed, because there is no chaos and conflict, because there was no opposition here. And do you feel that this government, Hasina Administration, is faced with the tremendous challenges at this very moment? What is your understanding? Barrister Fuaad.
Well, certainly the regime is faced with numerous challenges. If I may break it down, there will be largely three canvases to look into it. First, the legitimacy crisis. And it didn't begin somehow in January 2024. Rather, this regime had a legitimacy crisis started from 2011, as I say. Since the caretaker provision amendment was made without any mandate from the people, taken either through the earlier election in 2008 or through the public referendum later on. So I feel the legitimacy crisis is the crux of the crisis this regime is undergoing now. Secondly, the economic mismanagement on a wholesale basis is a total chaos in terms of its monetary policies, in terms of fiscal policies, in terms of the taking control of the inflations, price hikes, in terms of controlling the oligarchs of all sectors combined. And thirdly, I would say the problem with the international community. There is a serious acknowledgement crisis within the democratic world at large, though there are support from the other illiberal troika, as I say. So these are the largely three canvases we say that the regime is in trouble now. Now, Dr. Sinha, do you want me to elaborate on each of those, or do you want me to come back later on?
You go. You will have the 12 minutes times. Go on.
Right. Now, clarifying on the legitimacy crisis, any democracy, legitimacy comes from the people, which we call the sovereignty issue. In our constitution, it is clearly mentioned that the sovereignty belongs to the people. It is the people who take the accountability of the regime or any government. Now, how government is formed in any democracy? It is through election and through the parliamentary process that, i.e., we follow the Westminster model here. Now, since 2011, why I am saying that this regime has no mandate? Although the 2008 election was quite questionable because of we know how alliance of illiberal and undemocratic forces at home and abroad had mandated this particular party, AwamiLeague, to come into power. We know precisely that the coalition years, the book written by the former Indian president. We know from the other memoirs written by the military 111 regime cohorts. We know from the other civil society members involved in the process. And yet, though, we do not raise that many questions of legitimacy of 2008 election because the BNP and other major opposition political parties take part in that and also attended the parliament. However, since 2011, when arbitrarily and without any mandate, when AwamiLeague had repealed the 15th Amendment, to make the 15th Amendment to the Constitution by repealing the 12th Amendment, i.e. the caretaker provision, how the election should be conducted, there was an all-party consensus in 1996 upon the street movement by the same political party. Now, how that made the regime unlawful or lose the legitimacy? In the Westminster form of government, when somebody would like to amend a constitution, that needs to be mandated, and that mandate can come in two ways. One is through the prior elections, or there has to be post-amendment referendum. And the ruling party did not seek any of those. There is no question in the AwamiLeague manifesto in 2008 December that they are proposing to the people and the nation that once they are in power, they would like to repeal the 12th Amendment, the caretaker provision. Or after the post-amendment, they didn't put through the draft bill to the people because that amendment itself repealed the provision of referendum. So there is no provision of referendum to seek to. So therefore, in a Westminster model of democracy, a constitutional amendment taken place without any mandate whatsoever, pre or post regime in power. So therefore, this regime doesn't have any legitimacy since 2011. And of course, what happened afterwards, there is no credible election. In 2014, there is a one-sided, in fact, unelected members of the parliament. 154 were without any votes whatsoever. Then 2018 election was an election held night before. Even the prime minister was joking about it, that this time there will be no nightly election. Japanese ambassador had questioned his own experience of having an election at night, which he never come across in his 35 years of diplomatic career. So there was no election. And of course, what happened in January is not an election. It's an absolutely without any mandate. In our party, within the party, we had an election monitoring cell. We collected first-hand information from over 1,000 election polling stations and centers across the country, around 34 districts. And from our own assessment and statistics, there are no more than 2% genuine votes were casted. Although it might go up to 5-7% on the basis of manipulation. Later, after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, what happened, the input was given physically manipulated within the election commission apps by the election polling agents and at the dashboard based in the election commission headquarters. So therefore, through manipulation, it didn't even cross 10% or 12% whatsoever. So the legitimacy is the crux of any democracy, and that was the very basis why we severed our relationship from Pakistan. 1970 election, AwamiLeague won the election, yet the Pakistani regime declined to hand over power to Sheikh Mujib and the then majority leader of the country. That was the crux of the liberation war. That was the crux of our severing the relation. That was the crux of divorce settlement with Pakistan. Yet, after 53 years, we're exactly at a square one, discussing and debating about democracy, about right to vote, about things we had chosen and fought for. Now, on the second challenge, the economic mismanagement, just think nothing in the country is working economically. First, on economics, data and statistics. That's the first thing. Our population survey is fake. Our every statistics, our GDP survey, our per capita income survey, our daily cost survey, our inflation survey, our price hike of the gas and electricity survey, everything you talk about, the data, the statistics published by the regime is absolutely full of lies. Let me give an example why I'm saying lie. You see, we had seen the election in Pakistan. 128 million people at the voters. Out of what? 250 million voters. Population. So the population ratio is 250 million or 25 crore, and the voters are 128 million or...
I will come to you again, Mr. Fuad. Thank you very much. I will come to you again with the same issue. Well, Mr. Salauddin, you listened to what Barrister Fuad asserted and voiced. And what is your analysis about the election and the challenges before the government? Because Mr. Fuad has challenged the very validity of the government. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm honored and privileged to be here. So I'm just giving thank you for inviting me, and thanks to all the co-hosts. So basically, Mr. Fuad, he raised few questions about 12th parliamentary election, and he tried to blame the government and our prime minister about this. So basically, just I want to point out his allegation, and I want to say that whatever he said is not right, because Mr. Fuad said the legitimacy of this election and election in 2014 and 18 is questionable, and the legitimacy is in crisis. The legitimacy is in crisis in point of BNP and Jamaat, and in point of Mr. Fuad. So we are not in crisis. Bangladesh is not in crisis. AwamiLeague is not in crisis. Democracy is not in crisis. Everything is going all right. So just there are few problems. We need to sort out this problem. The government is trying very hard to sort out this problem. So always since 1971, there are some problems we can notice in election. In every election, there are some problems. But you have to compare the problems, whether these problems in this election is more or less. So I think in this election, the problems and the irregularities substantially decrease in this election. So Mr. Fuad, he raised the question about this election. So my question is to Mr. Fuad. Mr. Fuad, was the election unconstitutional or constitutional? This is my just simple question to you. Was this election constitutional or unconstitutional? So in my point of view, and the reality is the election was constitutional. You cannot find any single word from the constitution that this election was unconstitutional. So if this election was held constitutionally, you cannot raise any question about it. Personally, you can raise some question, but constitutionally, you cannot raise any question because this election was held constitutionally. And secondly, you raise a question issue regarding whether the election was legal or illegal. And you also raised the question, the legal crisis. So my question is, Mr. Fuad, so you are saying legal crisis. Can you mention any law, any legal point of view that the election is in crisis legally? 100% the election was held legally. There was nothing you can say about it. So this is my question. So in conclusion, if I want to say, the election was held constitutionally and legally. The government has obligation. The government was under obligation to hold the election on time, and the government did it. Now the question is, so you are trying to blame the government on the point of 2014 election, 2018 election, and 2024 election. So my brother, so my question is, what did you do in 2014, you and your alliance BNP? So in 2014, what you did not participate in the election. So what you did vandalism, you put fire on the bus, you put petrol on the bus, and you kill people, and you destroyed school, colleges, everything. So this is what you did in 2014. You did not attend the election in 2014. Instead, you trying to blame the government. So my question is, so this was your mistake. You did the mistake. You did not respect your party people. You did not respect your political activists. You did not respect your people in Bangladesh. So instead of respecting democracy, instead of respecting people, so what you did vandalism, you put fire on bus, you kill people. This is what you did. So why after this election, 2014 election, you went to your God, American God and other God, to say that the election under AwamiLeague government is not possible to be free, fair, and transparent. And those people, they said, whatever you saying, how we can believe, because you did not participate in the election. How we can believe whether the election under this government to be held free and fair possible or not? How is it possible? Because you did not participate in the election. Then BNP and Jamaat leader and BNP leader, they decided, okay, so what we'll do in 2018 election, we'll go to the election and we will make the election controversial. So in 2000 election, you went to the election, 2018, but only your intention was to make the election controversial, not to win the election. That was your purpose. So yes, you attend the 2018 election, and I will say you have been successful on that case, because you could raise the question to the people, to America, European Union, that the election under this government is not possible to be fair, free, fair, and transparent. So then you decided not to participate again in 2024 election. So instead of believing people, instead of believing the mandate of people, instead of respecting your political activities, your political activist, your leader, people of Bangladesh, what you did, you rely on some YouTuber, you rely on some Facebook blogger, you rely on America, you rely on Peter Haas, you rely on European Union. So they will do something for you. That was your foundation, that was your base. So you did not work with the people. You did not work with your activists. You did not work to participate in the election. So what you did, you relied on America. You relied on European Union. So that what you did not go to the vote. So now you are saying you are saying the election is not constitutional, the election is not legitimate. So whatever you saying, my brother, is completely, I will say, according to law, according in legal point of view, you are just talking about a lay people. You are lying on that point. I will say, if I say straight away, you are lying on that point, because you cannot. I can challenge you. You cannot give me one point in this talk show that constitutionally or legally this election was unconstitutional or this election was illegal. So what you did, you just did not go to the election. Hello? That's completely your fault. Hello? So you did not go to the election, and what you trying to do? You trying to blame the government. So I also, instead of doing that, please, next election in 2018, participate that election and try to win the election. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salauddin. Now I come to Professor Kalimullah. Professor Kalimullah, you are a legend in almost all fields, and everybody expects that you should speak what the reality is, not speak from the idealistic point of view. Please, Mr. Professor Kalimullah.
Thank you very much. I was carefully listening to Barrister Fuaad and also Barrister the making, Mr. Salauddin. They passionately argued their points in favor of them. They've come up with arguments. And against such a backdrop, I would like to say that the party in power has formed the government after 7th January 12th Parliament election. And on 8th January, early hours of the morning, State Department, United States of America, they have come up with a statement referring to the observers. According to them, the election was not free and fair, quote unquote. So we should also recollect our memories and find that on the eve of election, Donald Lu, the State Department Echelon official, has come up with a letter directed to 3 political parties, namely AwamiLeague, BNP, and Jatiya Party. And that was countersigned by His Excellency, the Ambassador of America to Bangladesh, Honorable Peter Haas. He himself in person went to meet leader of the opposition in Parliament, Honorable Jim Kader, and also to Secretary General of the ruling party, Awami League, and Honorable Minister, Mr. Abdul Qadir, and also made sure the letter reached the top brass of PNP. And that was kind of a charter of demand. There, they gave a clarion call for all the stakeholders, especially these 3 stakeholders, to enter into a dialogue with each other to solve the legitimacy, quote unquote, problem, and to ensure free, fair, impartial, and participatory elections. And after the issuance of the statement on 8th of January, lately, 3-member delegation under the leadership of Afrin Akhtar came to Dhaka. And while meeting the BNP stalwarts who were released from jail a few days back, and ask them to enter into a meaningful dialogue and sort out this uh, impasse. And the team also met around 4 or 5 members of the civil society, those who are known as uh, ardent critic of the government or party in power, and also went out to meet Kalpona, the garments workers leader. And in the same vein, met the concerned minister and exchanged views. And also, they decided to stick to Chatham House rules. So, no one is opening their mouth as because they're pledge bound to honor the Chatham House rules. So, against such a backdrop, we can say that we are in a simmering state of affairs, and we cannot say that the political impasse is over. So, but at the same time, the reality is that Awami League has formed the government, and as there is a government, its counterpart in the United States, they have no other option but to come to terms and also to deal with the government in power. And it's a state-to-state relation which must be there. So, this is the latest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kalimullah. Now I come to Barrister Zillur Rahman. You are from UK and you are already established yourself as a constitutional expert and a political analyst indeed. You listen to all the three speakers. They're talking about from the standpoint. One and main focus is elections are over. And America and the Western Europe already they have started having connection with the government as a part of the diplomatic or government-to-government relations. It means the diplomacy track 1 and 2. What about the diplomacy track 3, 4, 5, 6? We don't know. But as an expert, what is your overall focus and understanding about Hasina administration?
But before me, it would be convenient for me if I can hear the speech of Professor Forhad, because after Professor Forhad, I want to respond, if you don't mind.
Well, no problem at all. Professor Forhad Hossain, you listen to Barrister Zillur Rahman. He wanted to know something from your very mouth because he believes, as you belong to AwamiLeague, your logic, your analysis must have some sorts of constitutional or legal touch. And therefore, I have no choice but to come to you. Yes, Mr. Forhad Hossain.
You need to unmute it, please.
Yes, Mr. Forhad. Mr. Forhad Hossain, we are not listening to you.
Okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, go on.
Yes. May I take the direct question from you? Then it will be convenient for me to make the answer.
Question is this, Mr. Zillur, Barrister Zillur Rahman. He has expressed a desire to listen. First of all, he listen from you. What is the assessment about the election and the challenges and opportunities of the government? Yes.
Thank you very much. Election has already been held. The government has been formed. The government is executing its duty for more than 1 month. I do not find any sort of problem, particularly on the way of the government to run. So everything is okay. And now, Barrister Fuaad raised some question about the legitimacy of the election. But I would like to exactly go to the context of the legal picture. What exactly the legal status say about our election? That is very important. Yes, is there any legal reference that election that has been held in 2024 is illegal in respect of casting votes and others? No. We do not find any sort of particular legal reference from this. Whatever the position of the casting vote does not mean that election is not legitimate. The legitimacy of the election depends on how the election has been held and how the election was conducted. All the formalities exactly conducting election definitely were okay. So that is why I can exactly, as the representative of the party, the ruling party, I can say the election held in 2024 is quite right, particularly in legal footing. And another thing is that, yes, every government has got a challenge. And I think that the AwamiLeague government is not out of challenge, out of the touch of challenge. Challenge has become a very common phenomenon, particularly common picture of a government. Yes, it might be the economic challenge. It might be the challenge of the international community, whether the international community exactly will judge the present government. That might be a challenge. I do not deny it. The crisis of dollar or our administrative challenge, etc., etc. First thing is that, it has been a buzzword that the government will face trouble economically. But I do not find any particular challenge yet, exactly. Yet the government has faced. The dollar crisis, we have got right now, 19 billion dollars. We have got the reserve and it might be 24 billion dollars. Okay, it's fine. Okay, it's all right. It might be increased. So the government is right now is not facing any sort of problem right now. And the corruption, yes, it has become a very buzzword. No government is free from corruption. You will find the picture of corruption even in the governments of the Western countries. Yes, I must admit that Bangladesh is not out of that tendency or sentiment, but our Prime Minister has already warned all concerned exactly against corruption. And I think that the government is very much alert, particularly our Prime Minister is very much found concerned to take a certain kind of step against corruption. And she has got a very fair mind to see the corruption has been wiped out from every level. Another thing, yes, it might come to me that energy problem. Yes, we are not facing energy crisis. Okay, the government has the plan exactly to open new power generating center, and it has been going on. Rupur nuclear station has already been set up, and we are hopeful that we will be able to exactly over this sort of energy crisis within a very, very short time. Other thing is that the government has a mind exactly to bring a particular reformation in the administration. I think that the Prime Minister will take a certain kind of step to place the very efficient officers, particularly on the basis of merit, so that a smooth administrative body exactly could run the administration very smoothly. And that AwamiLeague is, I'd like to say, AwamiLeague is one of the oldest parties of Bangladesh in respect of Pakistan. It is the second oldest political parties after Communist Party. The AwamiLeague is experienced enough to handle the political crisis or any sort of situation might come to make any sort of stagnancy or impediment on the face of the government or on the way of the government. So I am very much hopeful that any sort of problem might come. The government is capable enough to face it. Now it is a question of the recognition of international community. You know that few days ago, our Prime Minister visited Germany, and she did not find any sort of question exactly about the election at all. What does it mean? It means that America or other Western country exactly accepted our election. Not only that, present President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, has already written a letter to our Prime Minister with felicitation on the election, on his re-election. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been voted for fifth time to be the Prime Minister of Bangladesh with a single interval of a single period of interval. I think that she is experienced enough exactly to manage the table of the Prime Minister's office, and she is capable enough to handle the international crisis, and she knows how to exactly earn the recognition of the international community. I'd like to mention the time of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, when Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman formed the government in 1974, 12th January. It was a serious problem because Bangladesh was a newborn country and was not in a position to have the recognition of the international community. And if I am not wrong, he took our father of the nation, Bangabandhu, appointed Dr. Kamal Hossain as foreign minister, and Kamal Hossain left no stone unturned to exactly earn the reputation, recognitions of the international community. And particularly, it was the target of Bangladesh during the time exactly to get the recognitions of the international community, especially the Arab countries, because Arab countries are oil resource countries. And it was badly needed to have the recognition from the Middle East. It is a very important thing. And you know that then Prime Minister Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, father of the nation, had been able to get the recognition of the international community. And not only that, in 1972, the United States of America recognized Bangladesh. And though the United States of America created a serious impediment and left no stone unturned to create a certain kind of intervention on the way of Bangladesh as an independent, to emerge as an independent country.
Talking
So,
about administration, not a Bangabandhu administration, please. I will come to you, please. Well,
oh,
Barrister Zillur, Barrister Zillur.
Okay, Dr. Sinha MA Sayeed and my learned discussions of this panel, and those who are listening to me right at the moment, and those who will be listening afterwards, all I give you welcome and assalamu alaikum. Actually, I was listening to the important points in the discussion of the different speaker. The two speaker, because Dr. Kalimullah, Professor Kalimullah, he is a university professor, although he is not an advocate or barrister, but all the speech is like a barrister, that means talking in a diplomatic way, although he is not a diplomat. But with the words of Dr. Kalimullah, what he said, I almost agree with all of his points in regards to the stand of the election and the legitimacy of this 12th parliamentary election in regards to the USA and the Western country. Regarding the Barrister Fuaad, he said this government almost maximum of the time they give the false statistical statement. I will respond with Barrister Fuaad, because I also agree with Barrister Fuaad that this government gives the false or the fabricated statement to the people, like as the Professor Farhad Hossain has said, that right at the moment the Bangladesh government is facing the reserve. In fact, yes, they are facing the reserve. Yesterday, the newspaper Bangladesh Bank, they said they are having the $19 billion, but actually this is not true. Actually, they have the reserve of $14 billion, which came in the newspaper on 5th February 2024 in Manav Zamin, and 12 February 2024 in Bonik Barta. And if we also deduct the ACU payment, then the actual dollar is $1,250 billion. But the government is saying $19 billion. So there are so many examples where the government gives the wrong statistical figure just to cool down the people so that the people is not on the street. And responding the 2 point, Salauddin and Professor Forhad Hossain. Actually, I was thinking that all speaker will say, because Dr. Sinha MA Sayeed, if you see your topics, the topics are all the challenges and opportunities before Hasina's administration after 12 parliament election. I was expecting the speaker will discuss about the opportunities and the challenges of the Hasina government, but except Professor Forhad, nobody has discussed regarding the issue. Although the Barrister Fuaad has started regarding the legitimacy of the election, and the Professor Forhad and Salauddin vehemently denied that this election is not illegitimate, this election is not unconstitutional. If I start with the responding whether this election is illegitimate or unconstitutional, that will take almost 3 hours. But I believe you will not give me 3 hours, even you will not give me more than 10 minutes. So in short, I will say the election was unconstitutional and also illegitimate. But if I give the example, if a 18+ boy or girl.
Mr. Zillur, can I ask you a question politely, please?
No, you can give answer or the response when your turn comes.
No, you raise a question. Just I want to
please
ask
allow me. Allow me to speak. Please allow me to speak, and you write it down. When your turn will come, you just respond. So in a short, I will say that this election is illegitimate as well as unconstitutional. If a 18 years boy or girl without legal marriage go for the physical intercourse, if a baby takes birth, so that baby is legitimate. That baby is like Dr. Sinha MA Sayeed, like Barrister Zillur Rahman, like Barrister Fuaad, like Professor Forhad, like Dr. Kalimullah. But the baby, the process, the baby was born, that process was illegal. There are so many state leaders in the world. There are so many Nobel laureates. They was born illegitimately because their father and mother.
Wedlock.
Because the Einstein, when he was taken admission into the school authority refuses not to take admission into the school because in his application form there was no name of his father's column. So he came back to his house, asked his mom, asked his mother that who is his father. Then his mother went to the school, and interference of his mother, he was admitted into the school. There is also a debate of the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto about his birth. There is also so many leaders in the world. There is a debate of their birth, but those leaders and the Nobel laureate, their birth as a man, there is no question of that. They are the like same as. But this election or this AwamiLeague government, they have taken birth by illegitimate or the illegal process, and the baby was born. That means the government has born. So in this way, the government is continuing, and in this way, we can say the government is legitimate. But actually, it is not legitimate. In short, very short, because my speaker has asked in which law it is unconstitutional and it is illegitimate. If we go to the Constitution, Article 7, where it says the people is the main source of power, and the political administration, the prime minister, the government will be mandated by the people of the country. But in the 2014 and the 2018 and 2024, actually, was it the mandate from the people of the country? The answer is no. If we go to the Article 11 of the Constitution, where it says the political administration will get the higher priority than the military and the civil administration. And if we go to the 65(2) of the Constitution, where it says the election, the government will be formed, or the MPs will be formed or the elected through the direct vote. But the election, only the 5% vote are mandated in 2024, and in 2014, 153 MPs were elected without any vote. In 2018, the vote was during a night. So that was a clearly violation of 65(2) of the Constitution. If we go to the Article 48 of the Constitution, where it says the election commissioner and the chief election commissioner, they will not take any decision of their own which goes against any of the political party or in favor of any political party. But if you see the decision taken by the election commission for the last 1 year, it all went in favor of the AwamiLeague. So which violate the Article 148 of the Constitution. Even the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, after election, before election, of his word and speech, there are hundreds of violations of the Constitution. Just before 3 days, she uttered that if the opposition party, the onions and the potatoes, if they stack up and they make the price high up, then she said to his people that they should be given the gono pituni. They should be given the gono pituni. A prime minister, being the chief executive officer of the country, she can't tell like that, and that is a violation of the Article 148, Tafsil 5. Because when a prime minister takes oath, keeping the Constitution under his hand, she uttered the word that I will not take any decision or I will not apply any law, keeping the grudge in my mind. But the way she talks, that this country is only for the AwamiLeague, this country is not for the other people. So that also the violations of the Constitution. The most important point is this 2024 election, the Constitution of AwamiLeague 47L, where it says the AwamiLeague will elect or select only one candidate. But the Prime Minister, being on the chair of the Prime Minister, she has selected dummy candidate and the independent candidate. Even the Constitution of Jatiya Party, section 11(5), where it says the Jatiya Party, the parliamentary board will nominate only one candidate. So in short, that also the violation of the Army Constitution and also the Jatiya Party Constitution. Even after the election, like the illegal child was born, even though it is a legal child like Dr. Kalimullah and me. So after the election, you see, they also violated their own made constitution, because they were having the two parliament and also giving the wrong explanation, the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina as well as his law minister, because the two parliament cannot run simultaneously. That violates the Constitution, that violates the Article 123 and 148 2A, because the Prime Minister under Article 57(4), she was to resign. She was to resign as the Prime Minister, because you see that there was the confusion. The Sheikh Hasina was the Prime Minister January 11 to January 29. So my question is, Sheikh Hasina was the Prime Minister was from the 11th Parliament or 12th Parliament during the 11th January or to 29th January. Even the minister who exerted their duties from 11th January to 29th January, the question is, those ministers, whether they were from the 11th Parliament or 12th Parliament. So if I discuss, I think it will take 3 hours, whether this election, this election or this government is illegal or constitutional. So in short, it is an unconstitutional government. It is an illegitimate government. Now, in short, your subject of
Barrister Zillur, you spoke in a very lucid manner and with your own logic and fundamentals. And thank you very much. And now I turn to Barrister Fuaad. We are talking about the challenges and opportunities to Hasina's regime.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you. I think my co-discussant, Mr. Salauddin, as a law student, must understand the difference between constitutionality, legality, and legitimacy. I think he should have read it in English legal system and jurisprudence, the same subject that I have read over through. And my other colleague, Zillur also had done so. And eloquently, I think I would only refer to Mr. Salauddin to please go through those books of sovereignty and understand it. Our constitution had precisely clarified where the power belongs. The state is legitimacy, power, accountability, everything belongs to people. Now, there was an election in every after 4 or 5 years in Egypt. Only, I think, back in few months, Sisi scored 89% of vote. Does it mean Sisi is a legitimate ruler? There was election after 5 years. Saddam Hussein, Ben Ali, Hosni Mubarak, other rulers, dictators of the world had a frequent elections in after 4 or 5 years. Even China, Communist Party had their own election system. Putin is having one next month. Does it mean they're legitimate? So I think as a citizen, as a law student, you must understand the difference between constitutionality and legitimacy. So my learned colleague had detailed about the constitutionality. This government, this regime is unconstitutional, illegally grabbing onto power. And on the bottom line is power comes from people. 2% people doesn't give a mandate. 5% people doesn't give a mandate to a democracy. It doesn't work in that way. Secondly, I think I would refer to my other colleagues to go through the United Nations Charter on elections. There are many conventions. What constitutes an election? It doesn't mean that one has to be balloted in after 5 years and that makes an election. No. And that's why there's a lot of jargons from those conventions that are used. Free, fair, participatory, credible, non-violent. Those words makes an election acceptable. Where these elements do not take part or is not constituting in what so we accept as election, it does not make sense of an election. And that's why Professor Kalimullah was referring to the international community and their letters. Why did they not accept it or give legitimacy to this election? That's the very simple reason. They know it perfectly well. There is a frequent timely election to be held under our constitution. But they know it cannot meet those elements of election conventions under international rules. Also, to your own history, does AwamiLeague accept 1979 election as a legitimate election? Does AwamiLeague accept 1988 election is a valid election? Does AwamiLeague accept 1996 February election as an unconstitutional election? It was constitutional. So why did you vandalize? Why did you observe 173 days strikes? You vandalized, you killed hundreds of people in the roads, in the buses, trains, everywhere in the world. So it was like a war-like situations. You boycotted parliament. What not AwamiLeague did during that 5 years, along with Jamaat, the other religious orthodox political party. So that was a constitutional. Ershad had a perfectly constitutional election in 1988. Khaleda Zia, BNP, had a perfectly constitutional election in 1996 February. Yazzuddin Ahmed was supposed to hold a constitutional election in January 2007. Then why did you come out with chapatis and logi boita? Dozens of people. Those are constitutional elections. Why didn't you participate? So that needs to be understood. As a law student, we would expect not to speak like a typical AwamiLeaguers. You should speak like a proper constitutional experts. You need to understand constitutionality, legality, legitimacy, and how sovereignty is derived, not through the local mandate, but through observing the international conventions, because we are signatory. We are member state of United Nations. We are observing those elements of elections. Now, moving on to the economic crisis, and as I was saying, the data manipulation in Bangladesh. Now, see, the regime is saying, the government statistics, our population is 170 million, and the voter is 12 million plus. Now, compared to Pakistan, their population is 250 million, voter is 128 million. So only 80 lakhs more voters for 8 crore people. It doesn't make sense. For 17 crore people, we have 12 crore plus voters. And in Pakistan, for 25 crore people, only 80 lakhs more votes. Now look at the numbers of school enrollment. Look at the numbers of students getting passed from SSC and HSC. Count down their numbers. Look at the 1 to 6 years old children that get vaccinated every year. 6 crore. So how could that numbers make up? It doesn't. It doesn't make up. Onions were sold 40 taka a kilo last year, December. Now it is 120 taka. 300% inflation. You just go to shopping, you buy your daily vegetables, fish, daily meals, and other things. You will understand the inflation is soaring beyond 50%, 60%. For some products, more than a few 100%. What the regime is saying, our inflation rate, 6%, 7%, 9% at the highest. So the numbers stack up. Look at the GDP growth. Our size of the economy, the regime is saying around 450 billion. Now, if the population, for me, at least it has to be to make that 120 million voters, 22 or 23 crore people, must. Otherwise, it simply doesn't match up, the birth rate and other things. So the GDP, the size of the economy and the per capita income, the regime is saying around $3,000 simply match up. It is around less than $1,500. It cannot be more than that. It simply doesn't make sense. Now, look at the oligarchs, what they're doing. Global Financial Integrity Report saying between 2009 to 2015, we had on a yearly basis more than $7.6 billion laundered out of the country. And since the report was published in 2015, the regime had decided not to share any trade or commerce related information with the international body like United Nations, WTO, and others. So then on, there is no data of it. So even if we take it $7.6 billion per year laundered out of the country, just think of the money laundered out of this country. Think of the projects. There is a report from the Bangladesh Bank and the NBR between 2011 to 2021. Between these 9 years, $45 billion did not come to Bangladesh. Overvoicing. The money stayed overseas. $45 billion. These are people's money. Yet we are begging IMF for $4.5 billion. Just think of the projects we are begging to IMF and World Bank. Think of what the former so-called land minister had laundered. 300 around properties in London, 5 in Manhattan.
Barrister Fuaad, time is almost over. Please.
So the amount of...
I will come to any time. Yes, thank you very much. And Mr. Salauddin, you listen to Barrister Zillur and Barrister Fuaad, and they are very much critical of the government. And they have logically, argumentally, legally raised such issues which need to be addressed very carefully. What are your responses, please?
Thank you very much for giving me a chance again. So basically, I want to ask 2 questions to my fellow brother, Barrister Fuaad and Barrister Zillur Rahman. So the reason I'm asking this question is because they repeatedly raised the question about the election, the validity and legitimacy. So that's why I'm asking this question. So, Mr. Fuad and Mr. Zillur Bhai, in our constitution, there are 11 division and 153 section. So from this 11 division and 153 section, can you show me that in any section that this election was not held in, conducted in any way? You can raise this question. Can you show me one section from our constitution? Number one. The second thing, so can you show me one law, one act of parliament, any law that this election was not conducted according to law? Can you show me from this? There is a constitution, there are laws. Can you show anything from our constitution? Can you show anything from any law that it has been, the election hasn't been conducted according to the law? This is my first question. And the second question to Mr. Zillur Bhai, he raised a question. He said that if a child is born without a father, basically without marriage, whether he is legal or illegal. So I think Mr. Zillur Bhai, he is living in London, UK, and so he studied common law. So you should know in England, America, and European Union, even a children born without marriage, they are legal. Number one. And second thing,
they are known as out of wedlock.
But the question is, there are two things. Number one, whether it is legally legal or morally legal. This is two different things. So that's why, so you can argue about it. You can say your own, you can express your own opinion. There is no doubt about it. You can express your opinion. This is called the beauty of democracy. So that's why the AwamiLeague government and our Prime Minister, and we show the people, show the world that we practice the best democracy because we accept your criticism. You can say whatever you believe. You can discuss whatever you want to discuss. This is the beauty of democracy. So another thing is, my brother Fuad and Zillur Rahman also raised some question that about the legitimacy. So brother, I want to, as you are barrister, so I want to mention one thing. So you definitely study the parliamentary sovereignty. Whenever you finish your LLB, before bar professional training course, definitely you finish your LLB. So in LLB, definitely you studied the parliamentary sovereignty. So in parliamentary sovereignty, Professor Leslie Stephen, the worldwide famous professor and legal scholar, he mentioned, if the parliament want, they can pass a law tomorrow that all blue eyes babies should be put to death. Legally, the parliament can do that because this is called parliamentary sovereignty. The parliament has the right to pass this law. So now the question is whether morally this is acceptable or not. This, in that question, you can argue whether it is right or wrong. But legally, you cannot argue that. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go on. We are listening to you. Please. I think he's facing some technical problems. Well, let him come back. No problem. Yeah. By this time, I would request Professor Kalimullah. You listen to all the speakers. Yeah, you are a scholar, professor of the university.
Sorry, I was interrupted by a phone call. Just can I finish my speech?
Yes, please. You go on, please.
Yeah. So what I was saying. So according to parliamentary sovereignty, Parliament has the right to pass this law, and legally, 100%, this is legal. what Professor Leslie Stephen said. So as you study law, you finish BPTC, you are a lawyer, so you should know these things. So, but in the perspective of Bangladesh, the irony is, you people, even you know the law, you know the rules, but still you try to raise this question. So because this is the irony of Bangladesh, this is the politics of Bangladesh, you can raise this question. And morally, as this is, I mentioned it before, you have the right. This is the beauty of democracy. You can raise this question. There is no problem. And also, my brother, he mentioned that the election commission, all the election commission decision went in favor of AwamiLeague. So my brother, I think this is not true, because if all the decision taken by election commission went in favor of AwamiLeague, so how the 63 independent candidate, they won the election? This is completely wrong. This is completely wrong. You're lying to the people around the world. So how Jatiyo Party, they won 11 seat? How Mr. Ibrahim, he won the election? That means whatever you saying, this is not right. And you also raised the question about the independent candidate. This is the democratic right of the people in any country. Anyone, if you want to represent the people, they can come to the vote, they can stand for the election, they can do that. This is their constitutional right, democratic right. So if you raise this question in your point of view and try to blame other people that I'm manipulating, this is not true. This is your point of view, Mr. Fuad. This is your point of view. What is legitimacy you are trying to say? You are trying to say the legitimacy in your point of view, in your party point of view. You are not talking, you are not saying this in generally, what is legal, what is illegal, what is legitimate, what is illegitimate. Because the election has been conducted according to the law. The election has been conducted according to our constitution. So now you're trying to blame us, and you're trying to say in different way. Of course, I respect your view, I respect your opinion, whatever you say. So there is no problem with that. So, and also, my brother, he said, in this election, there was only 2% casting vote. So whatever I'm saying, you say 2% casting vote. This is 100% you are lying to the people. So not even a 99%, you are 100% lying to the people. So according to the Election Commission report, it was 41.8% casting vote. So if whether you believe or not, this is your personal matter and your party matter. You can raise this question, you can criticize the question, you can criticize the commission. This is your democratic right. But the casting vote was 41.8%. So you saying in publicly that the casting vote was 2%. This was completely lie. And another thing is that you said whether the international community, they accepted the election or not. This is the question. Okay, so number one, our party view and our view is we never depend on international community. We never. Our Prime Minister, mother of democracy, Bangabandhu daughter, what she said? She said, we believe the mandate of people. We never depend on international community or international people. We always believe our local people. So the local people, they gave their mandate. They voted for vote, and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been elected as a Prime Minister. This is our concern. We don't have any concern about international community. Secondly, definitely, yes, we do respect international community. We have respect to the international people and other country. Our policies, all the countries is our friend. None of us is our enemy. So that's why, so you said the international community did not accept the election. So if the international community did not accept, this is also, whatever you said is not true. I'm telling you the 2 points. You can find out from this. Number one, if you say the international community did not accept the election, so how Joe Biden sent a letter to Prime Minister that he is interested to work with our Prime Minister. He is interested to work. The America, they are interested to work with Bangladesh. So how? How is it possible? Tell me. So you, whatever you saying in front of people in public media, that this is not true. Joe Biden sent a letter. Joe Biden expressed his interest to work with our Prime Minister, work our government, work with our Bangladesh. So that means whatever you said is not true. Number one. Second thing, in recently, our Prime Minister, she visited Germany, and all international community, European Union leader, including Zelensky, they meet our Prime Minister. And they said, all of them, they said they are interested to work with our government. So you said what you are saying, this is whatever you saying, the international community, they did not accept the election. They are not interested to work with our government. This is, brother, this is, you can criticize the government, there is no problem. But whatever you think, this is completely straight away lying. So if you say this way, and if you say this kind of lie in front of the people, so this will obstruct your credibility of you and your party. So this is not true. So the last thing is the challenges. The last question is whether the government has some few challenges. Of course, this is very important part. So every country, every sovereign country, they have few challenges. UK, they have challenges. America, they have challenges. India, they have challenges. All the countries, they have challenges. So now the question is how our government, they are facing these challenges, they are overcoming these challenges. This is the question. So I think according to my point of view, our government, they're solving the problem very organized way. And hopefully what is the irregularities, we will be able to solve this problem. And second thing, you said you raised the question about the price hike of commodities. So brother, you live in UK, I live in UK. I think another brother also, he live in UK or Bangladesh, it doesn't matter. The question is, if you go to the supermarket or if you go to the restaurant, what's the difference between, what's the difference, the price difference before the COVID and after the COVID? What's the difference? You know, if you go to the Tesco or Asda or Sainsbury to buy just a packet of apple 1 kilo, the price is triple time than before. It's triple time than before. The price increases more than in Bangladesh, in here. So this is a global issue. This is a global crisis. The price for commodities, the price of necessary things, everything gone up in everywhere in the world. So the world is facing a global crisis. The world is facing a global economic problem. So you cannot just, for political reason, you just cannot blame Bangladesh or you just cannot blame our Prime Minister.
We got your point. Thank you very much, because you are talking very positively from your standpoint. And thank you very much, Mr. Professor Kalimullah. And being a professor at Dhaka University at the same time, you are the Vice Chancellor. You are not only the Vice Chancellor, you are President, Chairman of JANIPOP. So you listened to all the speakers, all the speeches. To some extent, they are emotional, they are agitated, and to some extent, they are logical. To some extent, they applied their legal brain. And taking all these into the single fold, what are your analysis? Please, Professor Kalimullah.
Well, I'd like to say that the party in power, AwamiLeague, is very lucky to find an opposition like BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party. They are sticking to their acts, which they wanted to grind all along for the last 15 years. They want to have caretaker government until unless that system of government is reinstalled, they are not going to take part and don't want to be a party to this arrangement. Although superpower United States of America repeatedly trying to make this point clear to them that only dialogue is the solution, not street agitation or any other means. The delegation which came from the United States of America, lately Dhaka, and under the leadership of Afrin Akhtar, who works under Donald Lu, the much talked about State Department official, they reiterated the same thing to the BNP representatives. So, what America came up with from the very start, they're sticking to that, and at the same time, they are indirectly questioning the legitimacy of the election and consequently the government. So they are very, I would say, diplomatic in their stand, and partly that is giving the signal to BNP that uh, they are in a way right, questioning the very legitimacy of the system, but at the same time, they're saying they are pursuing a wrong course, especially with reference to 14th election, that they went for all-out resistance to the system, which they found out futile exercise at the end. So, with this newfound knowledge, at the very late hours, they decided to join the bandwagon with reference to 18th election, 11th parliament election, and that didn't fulfill their expectation. In a way, their expectation was dashed miserably to a very frustrating level. And with this learning, they decided not to take part this time. But, in the process, they have relegated their position to a non kind of actor. Officially, Jatiya Party, although they were cut to size in a way, the party which had 24 positions in the parliament, they ended up having 11 this time. But still, they are the opposition party according to the parliamentary style. Of course, I know Barrister Zillur and Barrister Fuaad would say that they cannot be treated as rightfully opposition party in parliament. But other three parties, those who have only one place in the parliament, like namely Workers' Party, Poland Party, and JSD. So, in terms of numbers, they are the majority. 62 independent candidates. They are not a party in that sense. All of them, almost all of them, they have adherence to AwamiLeague leadership and politics. They are loyal to the their supreme leader, who happens to be the daughter of the father of the nation and Honorable Prime Minister, current Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. So, this is the reality, on the ground reality, which should be spelled out in clear terms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kalimullah. You explained the issue in a very attention-grabbing mood and mood. And I think Professor Forhad say, listen to you very carefully, as it belongs to Awami League. He has logical arguments about the whole thing because it is his turn to visualize everything from the right standpoint, because at the top of Professor Farad, there is Barrister Zillur looking at him. What utters this very brother? Well, Professor Farad said.
Thank you, Sinha, that you have given me another opportunity to speak a few words. And before going to a question, may I take the privilege to clarify two things. One, the 2 or 3% vote have been contested, and it has been mentioned, but I defer it vehemently. You know that election day, you have to recollect the day of the election. It was a chilly cold, in the morning. So the people of the certain age were not in a position to go to the polls. When the temperature was going up, the people started going to the polls. And the percentage of casting vote was 32 to 37%. The election commission exactly declared it without any confusion. And you know that the election commission is an independent body having no influence from any corner of the government. So I'd like to clarify it because it is a wrong interpretation that I have to listen to this. And I have got the responsibility that I am representing the establishment. I should clarify it, and I have done it. Another thing is that, yes, economy is a very important thing. I'd like to clarify one thing, that Bangladesh has got a target that in 2051, you will see that Bangladesh will be the country of $3 trillion economy. $3 trillion economy. And you know that the government of Sheikh Hasina is targeting many things to be completed. And she has already exactly been found succeeded of showing this success in different levels, in different capacities. You know that there are so many infrastructural development we have found in our country by this time, particularly in the tenure of present Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Metro Rail. Definitely it is a new version we have seen in our country. And bridges, highways. And Sheikh Hasina government has been able to construct one of the second largest bridges of Asia, that is Padma Bridge. And do you know that at the hand of the AwamiLeague government, Jamuna Bahumukhi Bangabandhu Setu was completed. So many highways have already been completed, flyovers, and other things, and elevated expresses. These are new things which are expediting exactly the comfort of the people of the 21st century. So the government is found strictly committed exactly to bring the modern service to the community. And by this time, I would like to say that the houseless people are being provided houses. There are so many houseless people are found, and they are being brought under the scheme of having houses by so many house projects the government has undertaken. And not only the community clinic facilities, it is very important. It has been ensured by the present government. It should be noted with a particular consideration. These are the very important development projects the government has been able to complete it. And yes, the people are not going to the polls, etc., etc. BNP is the second largest political party of Bangladesh. I cannot deny it. But what will be the rule of the government when BNP is categorically and deliberately denying the election? And now, in this period, you know that over the last 1 year, you will find the picture. The BNP is found dependent on America, on the decision of America, on the decision of the diplomatic corps, particularly working in Dhaka. And especially Mr. Peter Hash was acting like a political leader in spite of being a diplomat. And this diplomat, the American ambassador in Dhaka, the Geneva Convention, Geneva Convention, the diplomatic duties, exactly. He ignored it categorically and deliberately. This picture was not healthy. What is the condition of BNP right now? I think that America is responsible for this. Now, American team is in Bangladesh, and now I'm not in the position to have this news right now, where they are exactly. They have come. What will be the message to BNP? Because I think that in political spirit, BNP lost its exactly the particular spirit because of having the categorical and deliberate counseling from the United States of America before the election. So I think that democracy in Bangladesh is not exactly in a smooth position because of the role played by the United States of America and the counseling, which has thoroughly been accepted by Bangladesh Jatiyotawadi Dal. And now, international arena. It is very important. I'd like to clarify one thing that I was telling about the period of Bangabandhu. And there was a background like this. Bangabandhu was able to command the international support or earn the international support. I fervently believe that his daughter, Sheikh Hasina, would be able to exactly earn the international support to every aspect in election, in development, and economic crisis. This is very clear. And internationally, I'd like in geopolitical matter, Bangladesh is a much discussed country right now because of the scheme, the Indo-Pacific scheme sponsored by the United States of America by this time. You know that America has already passed.
I will come to you. This is a new issue. I will come to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Listen to the speaker just before you, and I never request to touch on the same issue. Rather, let us talk about the crisis at this very moment, the Rohingya issue. I mean, the Burma Act. As a Bangladesh, as citizen of Bangladesh, what is your realization what is taking place along the border side, Myanmar and Bangladesh? What the role government is playing at this very moment, and what government could have done, and what government is doing? Where are the gaps? Please, Barrister Zillur.
Dr. Sinha MA Sayeed, I was listening to all the speakers, especially Salauddin and Professor Forhad. The issue was actually discussing very silly issues because all those issues, everybody knows it. And in favor of AwamiLeague, they are trying to defend the issues. But if I go to respond, that will take hours to hours. But just 1 minute, I want to respond, Mr. Salauddin. And he was again and again trying to say that in which law and which constitution the election is illegitimate or unconstitutional. Because in my earlier discussion, I said the constitution of AwamiLeague in Bangla, AwamiLeague Gothontantra, in that the section 47 tha, I will request Mr. Salauddin to go through Article 47, Article 47L or in Bangla, 47 tha, where it is clearly written that only one candidate should be nominated for contesting the election, but the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina selected the dummy candidate, which violates of its own constitution of AwamiLeague. And the second is the constitution I elaborately discussed in my earlier session, but one section I did not mention. I will request Mr. Salauddin to go through Article 7A, 1B, and also 2B. 1B and 2B, it clearly was mentioned if the government or the election commission does any act which the whole population has a disregard to the Constitution. If it is so, that also violates the Article 7A on B of the Constitution. And as such, if you go to the social media, there is a list of the Kushi law or the betrayer, like the army chief, police chief, PDR chief, cabinet secretary, and others. So they specifically violated the Article 7A on B. And the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and the President, they have also violated Article 7A to B. I will request Mr. Salauddin to go through the Constitution and get the idea. Also, you have mentioned the Joe Biden's letters and others diplomat letters. I don't want to discuss further here because those are all the diplomatic relation and the diplomatic norms. It does not mean that they have approved and they have accepted these illegitimate election. This is nothing but the diplomatic relation. Whoever is in the power, whether he is legitimate, illegitimate, or by force or by army coup, those who is in power, the diplomats, they work for the people through them. And also Mr. Salauddin has mentioned the parliamentary sovereignty. I would like to mention that if you go through the Article 78, where in our country it says that the parliament are sovereign, but sovereign, it does not mean that he can do or undo anything. There is a balance of power of the three organs. It does not require to be a barrister, or it does not require to be a political scientist who has a common sense, because in any of the democratic country, there are three organs. There is the parliament, judiciary, and the executive. Nobody is 100% independent. Nobody is 100% sovereign. They are interrelated, independent, or codependent. Because if the parliament make any law as per Mr. Salauddin, that is right? No. Because if it is right, then why the 5th Amendment, 7th Amendment, and 13th Amendment has been repealed by the appellate division of the Supreme Court? And if the Supreme Court is independent, no, Supreme Court also not independent. If the executive, if the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, if she says that I am above law, above all, no, because anybody can sue a case. Anybody can sue a case against the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister has to come to the court, because in our Constitution, Article 51, only the President, as long as he is on the chair, he is immune from the civil and criminal proceeding. Nobody else. So this means when this Parliament amended 15th Amendment, they also violated the Article 111 and Article 152 of the Constitution, because in the Supreme Court appellate division judgment, 13th Amendment judgment, where it says they gave the 3 observations, but none of the observation Parliament kept in 15th Amendment, so which violates the Article 111 and Article 152 of the Constitution. And the Professor Kalimullah, I always say that although he's not a barrister and also he's not a diplomat, but his speech I all the time accept, because he talks very diplomatically and as a barrister. But I was expecting in this show, because we are spending almost 2 hours, but if the people of the country or the government or the opposition party is not benefited, so these 2 hours is unnecessary, we are spoiling, because your subject matter was challenges and opportunities before Hasina's administration after 12 parliament election. Although Professor Forhad has highlighted some of the opportunities of our country, but no speaker except Barrister Fuaad 1 or 2 points has highlighted the challenges of this illegitimate government. But however, they have formed the government, they are continuing the government. So these government, what are the challenges? I would like to discuss some of the points so that the people of this country, as well as the ruling party, as well as the opposition party, all are benefited. The government is tremendously in the crisis of the reserve. As I said, that on an average, each month, $1.5 billion is being deficit because the expenses and the income.
You will have Zillur, only 2 minutes. Yeah, you crossed 10 minutes more.
So if it is 2 minutes, I said that Bangladesh Bank Reserve is a crisis. You also asked the Myanmar issues. The Myanmar issues, the government is really in crisis because in true sense, the America is insisting Bangladesh to fight against Myanmar army. But in other words, India is insisting Bangladesh government to fight against Arakan army, means the opposition army. So Bangladesh is in a dilemma. If he hears the advice of the America, he has to fight against the Myanmar army. If he hears the advice of the India, then he has to fight the opposition army, opposition party of Myanmar. And the third issue is the India out, which has started in the Maldives. Although there is a difference between India out in Maldives and Bangladesh, because the India out in Maldives, that is being supported by the government itself. But in Bangladesh, the government is not supporting the India out. That's why, although it seems the effect is slow, but hopefully after 3 or 4 months, this effect will expand more. And the last point is the election, as for the 95% the people, the voters could not vote. So there is a grudge. There is a grudge to the government. In that case, they might protest. They might come onto the street, and there will be a serious violation on behalf of the government of Article 37, 38, and the 39, because there will be restricted of freedom of expression. There will be restriction of the political movement, and there will also be the restriction of the political association. In that case, on behalf of the government, to continue the government, they might start with the kidnapping, assassination, forced disappearance, extrajudicial killings. On the other hand, the opposition party, they also might apply the right of private defense. So if they apply the right of private defense under the Penal Code Section 100, so there might be a killing, and also civil war might start, and also there will be a serious deterioration of the rule of law and the good governance. And my earlier talk show, if you can remember, I said every state, every organization has become a Frankenstein. Every individual, not the organization. So this Frankenstein will increase more and more. You will not be astonished if D.B. Harun is made the Inspector General of Police maybe after 3 years. If any incompetent Major General, maybe the Army Chief, maybe after 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. So this kind of Frankenstein will increase more to support this government.
Thank you.
And these will also, I'm ending, these will also encourage the future ruler that in this way, if Sheikh Hasina can continue power for 20 years, so that will seriously affect the democracy, and whoever will come in the power in future, they will do the same thing and will try to stay in power for 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years. And the opportunities just give me more 1 minute. The government has also some opportunities. Opportunities is Sheikh Hasina will be able to run the country in on hand, and if the country is continued for in on hand, there will be a visible development. The people will be able to see the visible development. And Sheikh Hasina, if she fails to deal with the smart diplomatic handling, So the government might face a serious crisis. In that case, if I am the advisor of Sheikh Hasina, then I will advise Sheikh Hasina to take the advantage out of that. Because if the India is strongly discarding to give the Tista project, Tista or barrage to China, Sonadia deep sea project,
Thank you
and
very much.
some of the development project of China.
You have taken more time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Barrister Fuad, just simple 3 minutes only. The steps taken by the Bangladesh government against the Myanmar issue. Do you agree or not? Please.
I think on an international front, Bangladesh regime is quite unprepared. And the reason is to take any steps in a national interest, any government and regime requires legitimacy. And the legitimacy crisis is not allowing this regime to take any steps whatsoever in national interest. Say for Adani power plant, the regime has to pay every year $1.2 billion only for capacity charge for around importing 1,500 megawatt electricity, which we do not need. In country, we have the capacity of 29,000, while we need 17,000 or 18,000 megawatt, even in the summer peak time. Summit Group has been paid off billions of dollars. More than $10 billion has been paid for quick rental, loot and plunders. You have seen the asylum has been given the secondary refinery in Chittagong. Well, almost all the money would be paid by the regime or through the loans from the national banks and others. The land is the government property. Yet the 80% of the equity would be given to asylum and its cohorts. So these are the kind of mismanagement on every front, including the international world. See, who are the players for us relevant? For most of the exports that we do it to the United States, European Union, and other Western countries. None of those given any legitimacy to this election. Everybody was saying the election wasn't free, fair, or credible. I think my co-discussants finding it difficult to understand so many jargons and legal terms. And I respectfully ask him to go through this again before arguing so much on those terms. Relationship with the state and giving legitimacy to an election is a completely different thing. Look at the Middle Eastern countries. Everybody has a kingdom, monarchs, emirates. They are not legitimate from democratic perspective. But the Western government, everybody has a good relationship and trade relationship with those Middle Eastern countries. Look at China. Communist Party or the CCP is not considered, is a democratic regime by the Western government. But China is the largest trade partner of European Union and America. So having relationship with the state and acknowledging a government as a legitimate representation of the people is quite a completely different thing. And that my friends are finding difficult to make sense of these simple things. Now, looking at the Burma front, government is basically taken by surprise because all the military and our intelligence efforts and resources are engaged within the country to deal with the opposition activists. The whole country has been portrayed, BNP and the other opposition platform, as the national enemy. So our law enforcement agencies, our intelligence agency, our military, everybody is busy massacring and committing genocides on the opposition activists on the streets. Yet their job was to look after our interest in the country and beyond. None of them were prepared what happened in Burma, the regional states, the other 7 sisters states, the bordering with India and close neighbors of China. So many things is happening across the borders, but our country and the regime was ill-prepared. You have seen, without any negotiation whatsoever, more than 300 soldiers and the border guard police of Myanmar have been returned. Many of them have been already executed by the Myanmar junta. This is how it works. If anybody, Zillur was in the police, he knows anybody backs food from the professional responsibility at the battlefield by military legal code, they have to be executed. And that's why the Geneva Convention does not allow anyone during the civil war crosses your border by the virtue of 118 of the Geneva Convention to be returned. Rather, he has to be kept safe until a settlement negotiation happens. So total, it is a mess. We don't have any information whatsoever what's going on in Rakhine and the other neighboring states. We do not know what to do, whether to keep relationship with ARSA or Arakan Army or Brotherhood, NUG, or at the center with the Junta. Is absolute chaos at our foreign ministry. So incompetence and the legitimate crisis made it even so difficult to make any right decision whatsoever. Look at Burma, Indian front as
Thank
well.
you, Mr. Fuad. Mr. Salauddin, lot of questions to you from both Barrister Zillur and Barrister Fuad. But within 3 minutes, please. Your responses must be within 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for giving me a chance again to respond them. So basically, that's why I say in different talk show and in my opinion, if you ask any BNP or Jamaat leader, so what is the definition of physics? They will answer the Bangladesh government is not legitimate. If you ask what is the definition of chemistry, they will give the same answer. If you ask what is the definition of political science, they will give the same answer, because this is the answer they have only. So that's why I don't want to say anything about it. You ask Mr. Fuad regarding Myanmar issues, he said he raised the question about the legitimacy of the government, legitimacy of the election. So that's why I'm saying, like, whatever you ask them, physics, chemistry, biology, political science, or anything, they will say, give the same answer, because this is the answer they have. This is the answer they're practicing since Zia Rahman formed the government. This is the answer they have practicing since 1971. So they cannot say more than that. So this is the one thing. And another thing is, so I'll come to the point. Another thing is, my brother, Mr. Zillur, he just manipulated my previous discussion about the parliamentary sovereignty. Brother, the parliamentary sovereignty, I did not say myself what Professor Leslie Stephens said in his parliamentary sovereignty. So in parliamentary sovereignty, Professor Leslie Stephens, the world famous parliamentarian, legal scholar, he said, legally, listen my sentence carefully. He said, legally, if the parliament want, they can pass a law tomorrow that all blue eyes babies should be put to death. Legally, they can do that. The parliament have the authority. This is called parliamentary sovereignty. The parliament can do that. But the question is, morally, whenever you can do that or not, this is the question. So now come to the question. Legally, the election has been conducted. There is no question about it. According to the constitution, the election commission has conducted the election. You cannot raise any question about it. The government has been formed according to the law, according to the constitution. You cannot raise any question about it. So the morally as a political party or as a political person, you can raise some question. So this is what we can discuss about it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I will give the 2 minutes time to Professor Forhad. 2 minutes time only, because we are about to end the talk show.
Okay, thank you very much, Sinha bhai. The question of Myanmar has come to our discussion. It is very important. And you know that, you know it very well, that Burma Act has been passed in American Senate. And since the act was passed in the American Senate, the internal disturbance in Burma has been going on. Before that, there was no so intensified internal disturbance in Myanmar. But the thing is that what is the purpose of enacting Burma Act in American Senate? That is the question. I think that it is the only purpose of the American government exactly to create a certain kind of situation in Myanmar and to bring Myanmar exactly under their control in order to implement the Indo-Pacific scheme. This is very important. And the purpose of Indo-Pacific scheme is to exactly create a deterrence, particularly on the way of China, because China is emerging as the topmost superpower, not only in Asia, but also in the competition of the global area. This is very, very important. But the thing is that I'd like to say Bangladesh government exactly opened the border and accepted 1.3 million Rohingya refugees on good faith to show the humanitarian ground. But America has taken it as a way of manipulation. Now, American summons to Bangladesh is exactly to assimilate this sort of refugees in our demography, which is totally impossible for the government exactly to carry out this sort of responsibility to fuse refugees of Rohingya refugees in the territory of Bangladesh. One thing I think that the government should have a strict measure exactly to ensure the security of the border, security along the border between Bangladesh and Myanmar, so that no single citizen from Myanmar could have a trespass to come to the territory of Bangladesh. That
Thank you
is
very much.
very, very important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now the concluding remarks from Professor Kalimullah. You have only 2 minutes. Please.
Thank you. Myanmar has been termed as Burma according to American legislation. And in a way, America and its allies, they are at odds with the junta government. They recognize the government in exile. And as a result, Myanmar is in deep soup. The statecraft is almost on the verge of melting. And we have no other option but to sort of deal with this reality beyond our border. We have two neighboring Myanmar provinces, namely Rakhine State and Chin State. Chin State is in higher altitude and in terms of terrain, and Rakhine is compared to Chin low altitude terrain. And there are altogether 48 border outposts beyond the border on the side of Myanmar. Out of these 48 border outposts, 35 is within Rakhine State and 13 within Chin State. And lately we found that Arakan Army is waging a fierce battle, almost hand to hand, with the junta army. And we have no other option but to act as onlooker to the situation. So, against such a backdrop, we'll have to come up with a clear stand, and we must try to sort of work on this tightrope as long as we can. But eventually, we'll have to come to terms with the reality. And for that, we've got to tighten our belt and come up with all out preparation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kalimullah. Viewers, we are about to end this very talk show, and near about 2 hours time we spent here. And the speakers spoke from their own standpoint with their own logics, mathematics, emotion, literature, everything, history. And there remain no stone unturned from that standpoint. And they also believe Bangladesh, being an independent country, should have its own access to everywhere. And regarding the election, most of them are the same view. There are some sorts of morality, question of morality, if not the legality, question of morality indeed there. And at the same time, Barrister Fuad and Barrister Zillur, they spoke in the very superlative mode. And they are of the same view that this election is not election at all, rather it's a kind of farce. And that's why they are very much annoyed with the process. And whatever they're talking from their own standpoint of patriotism. It doesn't mean that they're talking against the state. No, they're talking in favor of democracy, in favor of the peace and tranquility, in favor of making the Bangladesh a real democratic and economically viable country. And that is their own standpoint. And from the point of view of the regime, Professor Forhad Hossain and Mr. Salauddin, who is going to the barrister very soon, both of them are of the view that government is doing the level best, what is the perfect for the country. Even they are the same opinion, what the government is going to take initiative, and if government is serious enough about the Myanmar issue, and they're very much convinced that Bangladesh will not remain static in terms of dollar, foreign currency, and many things. And they also believe that the mega project and other project which has been taken, which almost few are completed, and they understand that the results of all these projects will come very soon, and they're very much optimistic of the future of Bangladesh. And apart from these, a scholar and iconic figure in the field of talk show, Professor Kalimullah, he made a warning in his last sentence. We have to get ready for the future. And it's a signal. And what it does mean, you know very well. And let us see what is exactly happening for Bangladesh. And thank you very much, and thank you all.